All right, so today I'm talking to you about the progress that I've made on some goals that I set out and what it's taught me. So let's just jump in. I set out to make an email list, make a digital product, and grow my personal brand. So I made the email list. I used Kit, which is just like it's an email list platform or a email marketing platform, and made it, got it set up, had a landing page, had a subscription page, and it collects the subscribers to that list so I can see those individuals and their email and whatever, and I can send out emails to the entire list of subscribers. So that's great. I made the digital product. I made a text bundle. When I first set out to make a digital product, I didn't know what I wanted to do, especially because the idea is to make something that you can help others with and you have somewhat of expertise in. So I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I do have experience with DaVinci Resolve and video editing. So that's what I went with. Initially, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was like, you know what? Let's do that. So I made the digital product and set up a marketplace for that. It's free. So if you want it, link in bio, go check it out. Drag and drop, easy to use. Text and titles, they're animated, different animations in the pack. So, and then the third thing was personal brand, which I put as work in progress because that's kind of hard to quantify. It's not exactly something that you see come to a conclusion. You can't just say, oh, at this point, I have built my personal brand. Maybe to some extent, but for someone like me right now, no, can't do that. So that's where I'm at with those goals, and I'm just going to kind of break down what it taught me. First thing it taught me, sometimes these goals take a fraction of the time you think you need. And I wouldn't even go as far to say like half or a third. You could almost say a quarter of the time. And to provide some context to this, the digital product, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I spent a lot of time thinking about it. What could I help with? I could make an ebook, I could make a pamphlet, I could make a course, those are all the digital product things. But I was personally being fed, like through my social media, a bunch of people making these text packs, kind of saying, download my text pack and it will help you edit faster, which is something that I seek out. I want help making my process faster, and I figured something I want, something you might want. So I made that. They're drag and drop. But basically, I'm talking a fraction of the time. To give you, this is a better way to put it. Once I figured out that's what I wanted to do, it took me one morning to finish that digital product. And granted, when I thought about it before, I'm like, this is something that's going to take me 2 weeks, 1 week, maybe if I'm really ambitious, a long weekend of dedicated work, especially once I figure out what I'm going to do. But I hit a day where I was like, enough is enough. I'm just going to do a text pack. I got an ad or something. I was inspired by someone else that did it. I was like, I can do this. Making the text pack, that morning, made all of them, downloaded them, saved them, turned it into a file, found a marketplace, listed in the marketplace, and by that night it was linked on my link tree in my bio in the same day. And again, this is just like proof to myself that, oh wow, this is a goal I had, and it was this big thing in my mind, but it actually took a fraction of the time. And I think this is a pretty common concept, that we suffer more in our mind than we do in reality. It's just the mental hurdle, so to speak. But I'm talking, it's dependent on the goal, obviously, but that took me a fraction of the time that I ever believed it would have. Okay, the second thing, starting, doing, and then course correcting is more powerful. So what I mean by this is, if you start on a goal and then learn as you go, it's so much better than trying to collect all this information and pushing off actionable items. It's just so much better to learn by making mistakes. Set out your goal and then dive head first. Like, get into it as fast as you can. Just start. And then you can fail and learn from that, and then you can try again. It's so much, like, you learn twice as fast. And the digital product thing is a perfect example. I could have spent twice as much time researching, twice as much time, polishing these animations and making them extra different from each other, and using the best fonts and coloring them, and then adding shadows, and then making them highlighted, and then iterating, and then finding the best marketplace, and all of these things I could have done. But because I did it, I learned how much time each part of that process takes. It was so much easier to iterate each one than I thought. And that's something I wouldn't have known if I didn't just try it and then learn that, versus trying to research what other people did or the styles they went with, or none of that matters. It was just what I tried and figured out. And then because I did that so fast, I can now go back and make a better version, and I can also know how much time it's going to take for each part, and like I can ultimately realize before I go into it, what part of this process is the juice worth the squeeze kind of thing. So learn twice as fast when you're course correcting versus over analyzing, which I'm really good at too. So, and then the last thing, goals deserve direction. Aimless action can provide quick and cheap sense of purpose, like you're making progress on those goals, but accomplishing those tasks without direction ultimately gives no satisfaction or actual contribution to that goal. And that's kind of like that's a very philosophical one to get into, but essentially it's like you could set out this very broad, maybe vague goal and say, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to try and do one thing each day or one thing each week, and you can knock those things off your list. And then 2 months down the line, you're like, okay, that's great. I'm making progress towards my goals. I've been knocking these things off the list. And you get to that end of those 2 months just to realize, I don't really know what that accomplished because I didn't know what the end goal was. Maybe I had a broad idea, a vague idea, but in the end, I don't know what that got me because I didn't have a clear goal. So it's really just about, at least to some degree, having some level of clarity. And it's also the difficult part is also sometimes you almost need to have clarity and just accept what that decision is. And let me break that down just a little bit. Don't let whatever the end goal is, whatever clarity means to you, don't take forever to come to that conclusion. Because then that's just analysis paralysis, and you won't learn twice as fast like I previously talked about. But you just have to come to some conclusion that this is what my goal is, and then just like learning twice as fast, you can maybe set new goals later. But at least for now, set this definitive goal, and then you can tick things off and say, okay, that got me to my goal. I did put one caveat to this specific thing that I learned, which I kind of already touched on, but allow goals to shift if it provides action, but still that requires some level of motive, we'll call it. And again, that's just don't get caught up in analysis paralysis. If it's something where you really need action to take place, maybe you say, I'm not so stern on what the end goal is. I can figure that out as I go. Because that is a powerful thing to just learn as you go. And those failures and learning those things will ultimately reveal what you are trying to get out of that thing. So, again, my mind goes to the digital product that I made and the email list that I made. Like the digital product, my end goal in that was to make the digital product, but to learn how to make one. And I did it really fast, and I learned, frankly, a lot. I figured out how the marketplace thing works. I figured out how to work these specific files of downloading these DaVinci Resolve edits. It's like a whole different file type, and then what platforms accept that file type. And there's some technical aspects that I learned because of it. So that will translate into whatever I decide to do, whether it's that version of digital product again, or if it's something else. But that one was specific. And the email marketing one, or the email list, ultimately was to prove to myself that I could do that. That I could, I do think it's beneficial down the line to have one, and I'm glad that I have one now, and I can update and make adjustments and revamp it and whatever. But that one was like, can I do that? Can I get myself to do that? So one was a little more personal, like proving to myself, and the other one was just to learn from that action. So again, it's like, what's the motive? Understanding that at least to a certain extent and degree, it's all interesting stuff. Goal setting and intention and values, it's all interesting stuff. Gotta love it. But for me personally, those are the things that I learned and it's kind of where I'm at with my goals. And this is actually my second time filming this because my mic wasn't on. It was on here, but it wasn't on the camera. But I got into, I set out 3 goals. That looks weird on camera. I set out three goals, and 2 of them I can say checked off. And I checked them off fast, in my opinion, for what I thought it was going to be. Because I literally set out to the end of 2025. I could do all of that over again twice before the end of 2025. Probably a long weekend. Probably a day, to be honest, now. But the last one, building a personal brand, is one of those things where it's like, I don't know. The actionable items are kind of murky on that, and the intention behind that is also complex, but incredibly difficult to quantify. So I wouldn't even call it like I set out 3 goals, but I'd almost call it 2.5, because the last one's just open-ended. That's just ongoing. Because you could argue, I got more engagement, or I got 5 more followers. Is that personal brand growth? Technically. But, maybe that's on me. Maybe that wasn't a good goal. But I think having it on the list, having it be my 3rd thing, and also knowing that if I did these first 2 things, it kind of ties into the 3rd one. Like if I'm getting people to engage with my account via an email list, or getting people to download these things or know that I'm helping them make a digital product, it's like, okay, that's bringing awareness to what I'm doing online, therefore building my brand. So that was one of those things where, like, I knew the intention behind it, but it's kind of hard to convey and quantify what that is doing in terms of pushing me towards a goal. So I could have out the gate, in theory, been a little more specific or narrowed what that meant down a little better. But at the end of the day, if you go based on what I talked about, it was kind of one of those things that I needed to keep it broad to just allow myself to try and push forward. And I could argue that it helped me do those other things, like make an email list, like make a text bundle, because it was an extra layer of motivation. Doing those things was pushing me forward in terms of personal brand. So, anyways, that's cool. I'm glad I recorded this for a second time. Hopefully it wasn't a flop. And if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. And we'll catch you in the next one, where I talk maybe more about the progress I've made. Maybe I set some new goals by then. Maybe it's 2025 by then. Hopefully that's not true, because it's November right now. And I would like to be making more videos, not less. I got to build my personal brand, not let it die out. So, anyways, I'm glad you stuck around, and we'll catch you in the next one. All right. Word.